Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming. Love to see the crowd. It's awesome. Welcome to this January 22nd, 2025 regular board meeting of the Pullman Public Schools Board of Directors. I'd like to call this meeting to order and begin with the flag salute. Amanda, would you please lead us?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, next I'd like to read our land acknowledgement statement. Pullman Public Schools reside on the homelands of the Nimiipuu Nez Perce people. We express our deepest respect for and gratitude towards the original and current stewards of this land. We acknowledge our role in building mutual respect and connections to support current and future generations. Next, we will approve the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda this evening?
Yeah, just one change to the agenda this evening. An overnight field trip request was added to the consent agenda, and that's PHS FCCLA.
Okay, thank you very much, and welcome, Craig.
Yeah.
I move approval of the agenda as amended.
I second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda as amended. Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes. Thank you very much. Okay, next we'll begin our reports, correspondence, and programs. We'll begin with the PHS ASB report, and I believe I see Connor back there.
Okay. Okay, so since the last school board meeting, we've been finalizing details for the Tolo dance on February 8th. And currently we have our Spirit Week and evening events finalized. And so those, for the Spirit Week, Monday is meme day, so like dress like your favorite meme. Tuesday is twin day, so twin with someone else. Wednesday is anything but a backpack day, so bring anything but a backpack. Thursday is celebrity day, so dress as your favorite celebrity. And then Friday is Zoom day, so like pajamas on the bottom and like fancy on the top. And then for the evenings that week, on Monday, our BSU club is doing an event. I'm not quite sure what it was. And then Wednesday, FFA is doing a swing dancing lesson for anyone who wants to learn before the dance. And then finally, on Thursday, ASB is doing our annual dodgeball tournament, and that will also be live streamed on Hound Central. And then in the words of our exec treasurer, Owen, y'all are not ready for how hyped dodgeball is about to be. He's planning it. And then looking at other things ASB's been doing recently, the big one is that today our activities liaisons had their monthly Senate meeting where all the clubs get together and like talk about what they're doing that month, if a club is hosting an activity so ASB can get involved with that, or just to like get on with what ASB is doing. I think that's everything.
Cool. Are there any questions for Connor? Please, Lisa.
What celebrity are you going to dress up as?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
I haven't really thought about it.
Yeah.
Connor, I don't have a question for you, but I just wanted to let you know that the board is trying to explore ideas on how we as a board can interact with ASB and the ambassadors more.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to give you a heads up if you can just kind of spread the word.
Okay.
And if you guys have suggestions for us, we would love to hear it.
Yeah, I can bring that up.
Okay, and then we'll also probably be approaching you guys at some point over the next few weeks or month-ish, just to give you a heads up.
Awesome, sounds good.
Actually, I had planned to do that right now. So before you leave,
Okay.
No, I was going to say we, in the month of March, are planning our agenda. And we're hoping to look into our graduation regalia policy. And so that would be like cap and gowns, what's allowed on top of the cap, if there's anything allowed in addition to the gown.
Yeah, see like what.
Yeah, and so what I would like to request is that in the month of February, sometime during one of your meetings, myself or another board member would like to come and talk to you all about regalia and sort of the current policy, what it looks like, and suggestions. And if it's at all possible, if you could sort of kind of collect any sort of feedback or like student ideas about Regalia,
Yeah.
that would be super helpful, because I think we're more interested to know like what students would want to see.
What they want.
So that we can see if we can somehow accommodate more, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, please take these back, during the month of February, just one of the meetings, maybe 30 minutes to talk
Yeah,
about
I
Regalia.
can send you our meeting schedule.
And just send me an invite whenever it works
Yeah.
for you, right? And then really just any sort of feedback, if you guys wanna run a quick survey, or like, I don't know how you wanna do it, but just anything that you could give us to kinda help guide that discussion would be wonderful. So-
Okay.
Okay, thank you so
Yeah.
much, Connor. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll move on to board reports, and I'll begin with Greg.
Well, thank you, Nathan. Two things. One, I had the pleasure to attend the memorial service for Kristen Robinson on Monday. It was a very nice service. Lots of people there, saw a lot of school staff. Just a real important person to this school and community that we spent the day memorializing. And it was a nice day, but it was also very sad. Also, talked about this with the Kamiak people as I was coming in. The Vitalent blood donation people have connected with PTAs for Kamiak, Franklin, and Jefferson, and they'll come to town. They always do the blood draw over at the city Parks and Rec office. But each school, depending on how many people donate on their day, can get between $1,200 and $5,000 to be put into their PTA group. So just want to let everybody know that that's happening out there, and just another way that our schools are connecting with community to help make Pullman a better place.
Thank you very much, Greg. All right, Lisa?
Yeah, I don't have much. I mostly just forgot last time to mention some of the great things that Jefferson is doing. Especially, I was able to attend the January meeting for the PTA, and they've got a whole spring full of fun events coming up. One of the discussions was just how to schedule things in so they don't conflict with the many other things that are already happening, including art night with a talent show. There's a lot of excitement about that. Family engineering night, the book fair, and mostly just wanted to also say that I think we've had a really good exchange of ideas between our PTA and PTO groups this year, or just watching each other, and that's been really helpful in making a lot of these events successful.
Thank you, Lisa. Aaron?
Yeah, hold on just a second.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Yeah, I was with Dr. Maxwell this morning at the LMS staff meeting where he gave the presentation as we've been doing to all the schools. So as was mentioned there, you know, it was a great presentation, but a lot of updates to to add to it because with the new administration, a lot of new executive orders coming out. But you know, overall, I think it was a good representation of where we are currently as far as finances go in the district, kind of what we're looking at on a state level, and then what we're looking at on a federal level as well. And the kind of some of the comments back from the staff, you know, there was some concern about the executive order that allows federal agents to come into what were previously protected spaces, schools being one of those, and kind of a concern on how that might look. You know, and so with it being brand new, we don't know a lot of information about that. You know, I think we both commented that we hope it doesn't get to that, you know, level, but we're just gonna wait and see. But there was some concern just like how staff would interact with that, if policy needs to be drafted up, if, you know, how they need to respond, I guess. So, you know, we could consider if that's something that we need to address. You know, my recommendation on that might just be wait a couple more weeks and kind of see how all this plays out. But it might be something that we at least have as a discussion point if, you know, we need to draft something up there. And then the other thing was just, you know, them asking what they can do to help the situation. And especially on the state level, They were encouraged to, go, there's, 200 bills you said filed already at the start of the legislative session, and however many else are gonna come up. So it was just recommended to, as concerned, and for everyone else, as concerned community members, really that's the one great thing that you can do to help support the schools, is to go look at the different bills. I think it's gonna be, put out in one of the weekly bulletins. The process on how to do that, where you can go and just quickly say, I'm in favor, I'm against, or I'm neutral on any of the bills that are out there, or contact directly your representatives, both at the state and the federal level, just to reiterate how important funding is to the schools. Right now at the state level, they don't have any cuts to education, but almost every other department in there is slated for a 6% cut. And so we're hoping that doesn't make its way to education as well. So as much as we can do with community members, involvement to help continue to support that is gonna be good in the long run. But those were just kind of some of the comments that were brought back from the staff, of where their, kind of concerns and thoughts are right now.
Thank you, Aaron. Amanda?
Yes, I also attended a staff meeting. I went to Sunnyside last Thursday, where Roberta Kramer gave the State of the District presentation to the staff over there. And it was prior to the administration change, so those questions didn't come up yet. We were still waiting to hear. But everyone seemed pretty ready to jump on board with whatever changes we need to make. So everyone's just kind of waiting to hear what goes on with the legislative session. And then in addition, Nathan and I attended the Chamber of Commerce luncheon last week, where Bob gave the State of the District presentation to them. And I would say that most people were pretty supportive of where we are with things, and also eager to figure out where they can fill in to try to help us continue to educate our students as well as possible. And along the lines of what Craig was saying about the blood drive, I think it's incredible that we have that to support our schools and our PTOs and our PTAs. In addition, I know that several blood banks were lost during the LA fires, so it would be very helpful to the folks down there, to anybody who's willing to donate. So thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Now, I also attended the CAMIAC staff meeting just last week, and PTA meeting, to give the State of the District presentation. And so we've been making an effort as a board to go out to the buildings and kind of sort of share what information we do know and sort of things that we anticipate coming up. So that was a really good experience. I think, as I agree, everybody seems really to have a positive attitude. On the ICE raid comment, we were just talking about that and at our 4 o'clock one-on-one, and so Dr. Maxwell reached out to the ESD superintendent, who reached out to Chris Ragdoll to get some clarifications on what that would look like. As far as I understand, those are forthcoming in the next couple of days, and I'm definitely sure that Dr. Maxwell will be sharing those with all of us and the staff as we kind of learn more. But I would say, yeah, like, this is part of the, we're going to talk about the communication plan later. This is probably part of the dance of, like, do we know enough to communicate versus, like, are we going to communicate something that's going to change radically? So I think we should all just kind of buckle up and expect that for the next few weeks. But we're going to do our best to kind of communicate what's happening and what's going on. But yeah, kind of realize that it may change. And then other than that, that is all I have to report. So, Dr. Maxwell?
Okay. So I'm heading up here to give my board report. Marvin's going to be a presentation, but I'm hoping to hear back from the Attorney General tomorrow with some guidance, possibly. I'm not going to, they said possibly to have some, or maybe some information, so I am working on that. And before I launch into this, just one other thing I wanted to share. The Sustainability Committee met yesterday, and we're working with the PHS Environmental Club on food waste composting. That's been one of the goals that they've had, so we're trying to work with that and trying to set up a system that would be consistent and reliable. We also talked about Earth Day coming up in April, and maybe doing a couple activities like possibly doing e-waste recycling as a community service, and so for the public. We've also talked a little bit about in May is typically a walk, bike, or a roll day to school rather than taking automobile transportation or bus transportation, so stay tuned for that. We also are planning some future meetings with the PHS Environmental Club and the FES Environmental Club, Franklin Elementary, to kind of check on some of the progress and projects they are working on. And an update, we had a conversation with PHS Environmental Club, and part of the topic was if we could expand some of our plant-based food offerings. Apparently we didn't have necessarily enough sometimes, and I'm happy to report that our food service director reported that she received a grant, and we're going to expand our plant food-based options. So we actually have closed that loop. So we listened to our students, got them engaged, and we're able to provide plant-based options coming soon. So with that, I'm going to jump into a little bit on the legislative. This is a long session. So this is a 105-day session, which started earlier in the week. These are what we're calling the big three: is special education, MSOC, which stands for materials, supplies, and operating costs, and pupil transportation. And these bills that you see, when you see a rep that's representative or senator like Lisa Wellman, when you see those numbers in parentheses behind, that's from what district they serve. So Senator Lisa Wellman serves the 41st district. And they are sponsoring these particular, it says HB, it's a House bill. If it's SB, it's a Senate bill. And all of these bills that you see today at 1:30 went up to a hearing. And so I was able to attend the hearings. I was also able to provide written feedback on each of these. These are very important because these are things that are woefully underfunded in education, and any assistance or any additional funding in here would really benefit our students. And so with that, I won't go into a lot of the details of what a multiplier is or what tier 1 or tier 2 is necessarily, but these are things that are contained within the Senate bill or the House bill that would really benefit school districts and the students that they serve, especially students with disabilities. So these are some of those details in each of those that are very, very important and very, very beneficial. If you look at multipliers, and a multiplier is just something that they would give above and beyond the standard allocation. And right now, enrollment cap, it says eliminate the 16% cap. What that means is, right now, if you had 17% of your population with students with disabilities, you would only get funding up to 16%. Anything above that would have to come out of the local levy funds. So that's really important to eliminate that, because if students qualify for those services, they should receive those services, and the state should be paying for those services. Again, MSOC, this one's really, really important because, as you know, insurance and utilities continue to rise at a pace that I haven't seen ever in my career. So it's very, very expensive, and that takes money away from the classroom, and we want to keep as much money close to the classroom as possible. So this one, Senate Bill 5192, would increase, how do you call it, a bonus. It's their obligation. But that would be a 10% bonus. And again, there's some calculations. There also is a factor for inflation, which would be good to have. There's also in this one a CTE MSOC allocation, which is interesting so as well.
Oh, yeah, that's
So, so this is one that would be very, very helpful. Again, House Bill 1338. This one goes to a 23% bonus. So this one obviously is 23 is better than 10. So that would be one that would be really, really good to have. This one also would take the 8 current separate MSOC funding categories and put them all into one. So that's interesting. There would be a regular rebase every 4 years, which would be nice. Very small schools, smaller than us, would also get an additional bump in funding. And skills centers would also receive some additional funding. So you're seeing a lot in CTE or skills center in a lot of the bills that are coming out.
Dr. Maxwell?
Yes.
Sorry. For clarification, on this last House bill, you said the MSOC categories were lumped, but on the
Yep.
previous slide, this one says that they're maintained, the previous slide says they're lumped.
Yeah,
So
this one's maintained.
This one's maintained.
A current would be maintained, and then the previous one, they would lump them.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so one lumps them all, and one keeps them separate, like, and right now they are separate line items. Transportation is another one that we're advocating for, and this really is one that would address the STAR, what they call the STAR model, which determines your allocation, which is always on the previous year. Some districts make out very well. Some districts have 100% of their transportation funded, and other districts don't. We get approximately 76% of our transportation funded using the STAR formula, which means the rest of that, almost 25%, needs to come out of the levy. So it would be really nice if it was a little more equitable across districts. This one also comes with a $400 per student rider for special transportation, specifically for students who would be homeless. So. There's also House Bill 1356, which talks about levies, LEA. Right now, the current cap is $2.50 per 1,000 of assessed values. We don't even come close to collecting that. We're about, Diane,
About 175,
about 175.
because the assessed valuation for 2025 went up 30%.
Went up 30, yeah.
Yeah.
So we collect $1.75 per thousand assessed value. You can only go up to $2.50. What this would do is put an inflationary enhancement on that and raise it. So there's talk about raising this lid, which seems like a good idea, but could really put a huge disparity between districts on how they're funded. Local effort assistance. This is given to districts that maybe what sometimes we call property poor, where they may have a very, very small taxable base, or maybe have large portions of their district which don't pay property tax. So in that case, they would get some local effort assistance funds. So if you're going to do that, then you probably need to increase local effort assistance. And special education, there's going to be quite a few bills with that I had mentioned before. This one is also the first time I think I've ever seen this, where certificate instructional staff would increase the current 4 days allocation of pay for substitutes to 5 days. We typically pay 12, so the rest of that has to come out of the levy. And for the first time, classified will get 2 days funded per unit. Right now, we get 0 funded from the state for classified substitute days. So also a certificated increases the daily rate from 151 to 200. So these are just some of the ones that are happening right now, and they're taking feedback from. And with that, that was kind of a quick tour through the first, well, this today, of the bills, but there's plenty of time left, so happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, are there any
right now.
questions for Dr. Maxwell? All right, thank you very much, Dr. Maxwell.
All right, thank you.
Again, I appreciate you all sitting through our financial presentation. I know that probably was, all of the acronyms in education get a little crazy, so if you don't know what they mean, you're not alone, I promise. Next, we will move to my favorite part of the evening. Yeah, right here. The Kamiak Elementary School Showcase presented by Evan Hecker. So,
Well, thank you, Nathan. Thank you, school board, for having us. Third grade parents, families, Kamiak families, thanks for being here. There'll be a quiz on all that information tomorrow in third grade. Good luck. Thank you, Dr. Maxwell. Yeah, this is great. I'm really excited about tonight, but let's just get right into it. Our professional learning community believes it is vital to cultivate a sense of belonging for each child, family, and staff member. Our incredible third grade collaborative team exemplifies this belief and works together to create meaningful opportunities for students to develop a sense of identity within our supportive and welcoming environment. Belonging is a fundamental human need, and our educators knock over barriers for our children so they can reach their full potential. This is one example of something we've done at Kamiak. I believe the fourth annual cultural float parade, and I'm really going to turn it over to Mrs. Blem and Mrs. Heitman. Mrs. Opgenorth could not be here tonight with us, and then eventually the kids are going to come up here too. So thank you for having us. Enjoy.
Okay, I'm sure the students were a little panicked that I was going to make it here with their floats. I was donating blood at our blood drive, so I was like, I gotta go. I gotta get to the school board meeting. So anyway, we put out the call to some of our students who we saw had really put a lot of time and effort into their floats, and also a diversity of the floats that you're going to see tonight. And the families were so eager to bring their kids here. And I think that that just speaks to our Kamiak community and the support that we get from families. You've all been invited to our big event tomorrow evening, where you would see all of the third graders. But Kamiak is a really special place with just this diversity that needs to be celebrated, and learning from each other. Today I was reading Brock's write-up, writing as part of this project, and I said, I didn't know the green of the flag meant the mangrove tree. And it's so fun to always be learning new things about where our students come from, about our students' cultures, and their traditions within their families. So we start this project in November. Prior to Thanksgiving, we start by talking about community and how communities come together, and we'll put on parades. And so the students saw videos of everything from the Macy's Day Parade to Pullman's Lentil Fest Parade. And then from there, they interview a family member over the Thanksgiving holiday, because oftentimes they might see grandma, grandpa. They could even talk to mom and dad. And so they actually learn that they have family traditions, which oftentimes we don't realize that until maybe we're not spending the holidays with our families. And then from there, we have some deadlines, and they're planning their float and thinking of materials they'll need. This is done at home. And because of that, they are so original. And some, you can see that it was a parent input, others the kids do solo, but regardless, they're really proud of them. And so today, what we do the day before our parade is the kids get to walk through one classroom at a time, and they write positive comments for each other. So we talk about being specific with the details of things they noticed on the floats, and really building each other up. Additionally, they do some writing, and they work on the Google slide, and so putting their writing using technology, so that tomorrow, during our parade, there's a written piece that you could read off of. And then tomorrow, during the school day, our students will be putting on a parade for the second graders, so they'll get an idea of what they're doing next year, and the fourth and fifth graders who've also done the project. And then in the evening, our families will come. And so I would ask if the third graders could come up here and find your float. And I'm going to ask them, if they're comfortable, to just tell you something they learned. Something they learned about their heritage, their culture.
I think I said third annual because it's the third year in a row with families. I think year one was COVID, and so we just did it with kids. We weren't allowed to have people in the building, I don't think, yet. It's fantastic, though. I hope you can make it. If not, we'll do it again next year.
I can testify that I've been to 2 of the 4.
Yeah.
They're pretty good. I always learn all kinds of cool stuff. It's awesome.
Okay, so I'd like the kids, if they're comfortable, speaking in front of grown-ups into a microphone, to say your name, to tell us what country or culture does your float represent? And then, if you can, think about something that you learned or you put on your Google slide. And then, if you could just walk around so that the adults could see it up close, okay? The parents will see it tomorrow, okay? All right, we'll start with you, Henry.
Any volunteers now?
Should I just put it right there? My name is Henry, and my float is about like Scotland, the UK, Ireland, and the US. My family came to the US in 1620 on the Mayflower. I guess the new thing I learned was that some of my family is from the UK.
Kinsley, are you
Yeah.
here?
Give him a little applause there, Henry.
This one's heavy. Let's make sure we hold it. It's full of sand. Cool. Okay, it's heavy.
That is super cool. I like your little picture.
My name is Kinsley, and I represented my float on Guam. I learned that the hook necklace means that there's enough food for everybody, because a hook necklace is how they catch fish, and
Thank you. I like your colors.
Okay.
My name's
But you gotta
Floriana.
speak loudly.
Okay. My name's Floriana Mate, and one thing that I learned about my float is Nigeria's has a big population.
Cool. Great job. Very nice.
hi, my name is Addison. And my float represents my flags of my family. The one that has the M on it is just the first letter of my last name. I learned it that a couple months ago that my grandpa was a CB.
Oh, cool.
A CB is a person that builds, I think, and also helps in the army, I think.
Very nice.
Hello, my name is Adeline, and I am representing Tennessee and Michigan of the USA. I learned that the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee are the most visited national park in the USA.
Nice. Nice.
You might notice that we have triplets in the 3rd grade.
My name is Rota Mate, and I am responding of Nigeria. The thing that I learned is that Nigeria is the famous country in Africa.
My name is Oninge Meti, and I learned that Nigeria is the giant of Africa, and the flag is green, white, green. Green represents wealth, and white represents peace.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Awab, and my float represents Libya. One of the things I learned is that Libya has many kinds of clay pottery. Hi, my name is Spencer. One of the things I've learned about Nigeria is that in weddings people throw money at the bride and groom.
Nice.
Hi, my name is Ibrak Khan, and my float is about Bangladesh. And what I learned is Bangladesh has the largest mangrove forest in the world.
Cool.
Okay, and again, this is a small sampling of a few kids from each classroom, and we'd love to see you tomorrow for the whole shebang if you're available. But as you can see, the kids really put a lot of time and effort into their project, and each one is so creative, and they learn something new and being able to learn from each other. So we're really proud of our project, and like I said, this is the 4th year. The first year was COVID year, so we couldn't have the parents come in. But it's been really fun for the other students in the older kids upstairs to be able to see, like, I remember doing that. And some kids will say, my float's still in my closet. And so anyway, that's just something we're really proud of at Sunnyside. Sorry, 20 years at Sunnyside at Camiac. So, all right, thank you, families. You are dismissed unless you would love to stay for more. And we're going to bring the floats back to school, so they're ready for our parade tomorrow.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all so much for coming.
We give everyone a moment to clear out.
Carrie, was one of those?
Thanks, Evan. It's fun. Alrighty. All right, next we will follow that wonderful presentation with the equity update. And so are you prepared to give one this evening, or is?
Well, just brief, because that just happened. So that's just a great example of the different things that occur out in the schools. Many schools have different types of student clubs or classes are always doing things, but I think this is just a very nice, real example of the things that are going on that really builds upon that belonging that we're constantly working on and working with our students. So that's the only equity update, and I think they did a great job. So.
Nice. And Craig, would you like to share anything about the task force?
Yeah, the last EIB meeting that we had, we started working on the survey since we decided not to do the CEE survey. So we are looking at answering the 3 questions that the board has tasked this group with by asking some questions about feelings in the community and hopefully get a good response.
Cool. That sounds awesome. I look forward to seeing it.
Yep.
All right. Are there any questions for Craig or Bob? All right. Okay, next we will move to public comment. Do we have anyone signed up to speak this evening? Just in case there are some folks in the audience, if anyone would like to speak in front of the board, you can have 3 minutes. And you just have to sign that sheet. So going once, going twice. Okay, that was your opportunity. We are moving on to the consent agenda. To expedite business at a board meeting, the board approves the use of a consent agenda, which includes items considered to be routine in nature. Any item which appears on the consent agenda may be removed from the agenda by a member of the board and voted on separately. The remaining items will be voted on by a single motion. Would anyone like to remove anything from the consent agenda this evening?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Are there any questions on the motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes. Next, I'd like to invite, I'm imagining you.
That's me.
Okay, Dr. Maxwell to present on the psychology text adoption.
Yeah, Roberta's not here tonight, so she asked if I would cover her psychology text adoption. She presented this at the last board meeting. This is part of our college in the classroom. And so the book that we currently used is outdated, and we needed to use a more recent text. So she noted that she had received no questions since the last presentation, but I'm happy to try to answer any questions if you have any.
Does anyone have any questions this evening?
I move approval of the psychology text adoption.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the psychology text adoption. Are there any questions on the motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And the motion passes. Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
Okay, next we will discuss the board communication plan, and for that I will turn it over to Amanda Tanner.
Okay, so based on the discussion at the last meeting, we added a couple things. We changed the survey to just a survey rather than a CEE survey to save the district some money. And then we also added a board dinner. I asked Courtney to tentatively put it in March/April, and then another one in the fall in September/October. So that's a little bit flexible, and we can figure out when that works for everybody. I would be happy to kind of take the lead on that unless somebody else wants to. I was thinking those months because it's before things get crazy in the spring, in May and June, and then again in the fall, kind of after school starts and get settled down before the holidays. So that's kind of my thinking on that. And then there were, I think it's important to point out that due to the recent change in administration and the legislative session kind of being in process right now, that we consider this a live document. Things are gonna have to evolve, and that's just gonna have to be a conversation amongst the board and the district office as needed. So I got some feedback from Erin and from Lisa, and so I just wanted to bring those items up. Erin suggested that following the community listening session that we are doing tentatively in March, that we be sure that we do some sort of follow-up communication to the community, just sharing with them that we appreciate their participation, and then maybe share future steps. And I think that that's something that's really important to do. I believe, Nathan, you sent an email to the
Yes,
participants last
anyone who
time,
provided a contact.
as long as you could read their email address. It
I
might
gotta
be
review
worth
it.
just throwing a quick blurb in the community update too. I'm not sure that's something that we can visit, how we want to do those things, but I thought it was really good feedback. And then he also agreed that we should do the dinners, which I added to the plan. And then Lisa had some suggestions to do with just furthering our communication with ASB and PHS, hoping to use ASB, and I think ambassadors would probably be a good avenue too, to continue trying to educate them about advocating for themselves and the schools and the funding. So that's something to think about how we want to do that. And then she also brought up maybe board members talking during the civics class, and I know that I have been invited in the past to talk in a class to kind of share how the board operates, and so maybe that's something that we can approach the appropriate teacher, maybe board members could do something like that. I think that's also just talking to the students about the legislative process and the effects that it has on education, which directly impacts them. So I thought that that was a good suggestion, that maybe we could be proactive about making sure it happens. And then involving the community, providing kind of a simple way for them to communicate with legislators, like Nathan and Bob were talking about, sending out, here's what's happening, here's an easy way to communicate with them, here's, you talked about here's the bills, yes, I agree, no, I don't agree. And so just making it really simple and straightforward for our community to be able to advocate for education with the legislators. And then she also suggested maybe coming up with some sort of advocacy week or month, because if we're able to frame an event, it maybe puts people in the mindset of being able to take action. It's kind of something on the calendar rather than just something I need to do when I get around to it. And then she also shared with me a website that she found that I'm going to ask her to share a little bit more about, called the BillionDollarBakeSaleWA.com, which, Lisa, would you like to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, thank you for summarizing all this and collecting our feedback and mentioning that. So I will admit I just thought like this would be great if we had an easier way to sort of communicate a complicated budget situation to families and parents. I know that I am very obligated to read everything from the school district, and it is still hard to sometimes get through every message or put things on the calendar. And so asking people to do anything additional, the easier we can make it, the better. And so in hoping that there was maybe some group that was putting together kind of messaging for families or helping people get involved with this in an accessible way, found that some local school groups, mostly in the Seattle area, but also around the state, including like Wenatchee and Olympia, not much on the east side of the state yet, have been participating in this $1 billion bake sale campaign that really, some of them are actually putting on bake sales to help raise a small amount of money, often for sort of the PTA, PTO group, but also trying to educate people on the fact that those groups, those local efforts alone are not enough to cover the budget gaps that schools are seeing in education. And so using that opportunity to say, they have estimated and they have good information about where they're getting sort of this $1 billion estimate of shortfalls that local districts are seeing. In Seattle, this is very personal because they had, until it was canceled, they were going to close several elementary schools. So families there are already very engaged, but these are the same issues facing our districts around the state. And so they put together some really nice flyers and even like a how-to if you want to put on your own event, things that are just easy printables. And it seems like most of that's being done at sort of the school level, and so I think that's partly just an invitation maybe to our own schools if they want to be involved in something like that. But I could also see that as a template we could use district-wide to try to make this issue a little bit more salient and understandable for folks.
Cool.
So I guess, I'm not really sure how this goes. I know it's an action item, so I'm not sure. I think because it's a live situation, it's going to be constantly changing. I'm not sure if we go ahead and approve this.
I have a
and
plan,
then- Okay.
actually. So,
Can I just add one more thing?
yeah, please do.
I also think that it's important that if we're gonna tackle all these things, which I think are all incredible things, that it's gonna have to be a divide and conquer type situation. I don't think any single person on the board is able to devote what it takes to accomplish all of these things. So I think everyone needs to keep in mind kind of where they're willing to share the load. And that's all I have.
I appreciate that. And I would say the one comment that I had just thought about really is for the community update articles, should we be being more methodical in our planning of subject matter? And if so, how do you all want to do that? Like, because I know Aaron, you're probably near done, or
It was submitted back in December.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you're
I'm
next then
working
for
on mine.
March,
Yeah.
okay?
And I'm happy to, when I submit these, I'm unclear when they're gonna be published. Courtney's kind of the guru on keeping track of that, but I am happy to take a suggestion, or if we wanna work together with having methodical topics, I think that's not a bad idea, but it doesn't coincide with when we submit it, it coincides with when it's gonna get printed.
Yeah, I know. That's because I wrote the one for January with that in mind, but I was like, I don't know if it's going to go out in January. So, okay, I would say, go ahead, please, Lisa.
Yeah, I don't know if this is too rigid, but at least maybe for this next, during the course of this communication plan, during the first meeting of each month, could we have that as a discussion item of just the topic, and that way?
Oh, like a report or something?
Yeah,
Okay,
and that
yeah,
way
we
if it's
can.
your turn, you could provide what you're thinking of, but also get feedback if there's other more pressing issues that.
I like that.
people
What do y'all
have.
think?
I'm fine with that.
Procedurally? Okay.
I'm always looking for a topic.
I would,
to write
a
about.
reminder would be helpful.
Yeah.
No,
I
for
mean,
sure.
We get lots of reminders, but.
Yeah. And we could also just go through that list of what might be coming up for that month, as Amanda said, and who might have the capacity to, take on one of those communication responsibilities apart from just the community update. That might be an opportunity for us to kind of review it and say, okay, we've got ASB presentations, who's available to go? We've got, whatever else is on there.
And so that actually fits well into my plan. So this, I totally agree, is a living document. I put it on the action items because I do think the initial draft we should approve with a vote. Once we approve it, it will appear in the consent agenda with any changes that we update. And so I really like the idea of once a month, we do a review of that month column and the next month column, like as a board report, right? And so in that review, we could be like, do we want to change anything for that month and next month, maybe even the following? And then we can put it in as a procedural change during the next meeting, right? And so that way it keeps the document up to date and it keeps us talking about it. Is that a good plan going forward? Okay. And so I think we'll roll with that. But yeah, I would be seeking an action vote this evening on the document, so.
Okay.
I move approval of the Board of Directors communication plan.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the Board of Directors communication plan. Are there any questions on the motion?
I just
Yeah,
want to
go ahead.
say thanks, Amanda, for taking the lead and putting this and for all the feedback from everybody. I think it's really going to be important, just going forward to, this really allows our to close the loop on a lot of things. We hear a lot, we bring a lot in, and, I think that's one thing that we've been missing a lot of is responding back out with what our actions are. Usually all these actions happen behind the scenes and things are getting done, but this really is going to help make more of that visible. So yeah, I think it's a great step forward for us.
Okay, are there any questions on the motion? All right, seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes. Thank you all very much. And thank you, Amanda and staff, for putting together such an awesome communication plan. It's great. Next, I'll ask Dr. Maxwell to present on policy 3141, non-resident students.
Yes, so this was presented at our last board meeting, and this was to update some of the language and also create a revocation of acceptance mid-year rather than end of the year. One of the questions that came up was full-time or part-time, and we revised it to keep it the way it was, full-time and part-time. We went back and looked, it's hard to delineate full-time, part-time, because we had two classified that were 6 hours, well, typically is not, somebody may think that's part-time, but in our world it's full-time. So, but there were a total of 4 employees that would fall into this particular category. So we went back and did a little bit of research on that, so.
Thank you for doing that, by the
Oh,
way.
not
That was
a
my
problem.
question.
So, based on that, we decided just to leave it as it was, and that way we wouldn't have to invent any more language, and it serves the purpose for our staff. That was the only question I recall that came up, and the only change from the last time it was presented.
Cool. Are there any questions for Dr. Maxwell?
I move approval of policy 3141, non-resident students.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve policy 3141, non-resident students. Are there any questions on the motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you.
Next, we'll do policy 5270, resolution of staff complaints, also with Dr. Maxwell.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, again, this was presented at the last school board meeting. This one was just basically getting it in alignment with WASDA's model policy. They're striking some language and then adding one sentence. And I have received no questions since it was last presented.
Are there any questions now?
I move approval of policy 5270, resolution of staff complaints.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve policy 5270, resolution of staff complaints. Are there any questions on the motion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes. Next, we have policy governance-based superintendent evaluation proposal, 1630 superintendent evaluation. There's been no real changes to the document. I did reach out to several folks for feedback. I didn't receive any until last minute Tuesday, so I apologize for the yesterday email. If any of you have not been able to read it, I'm sorry. But basically, we reached out to legal counsel and then we reached out to WASDA to see kind of what they thought of our policy draft and then what the plan going forward would be. I wasn't like super thrilled to find out that we're going to be putting the fund structure. So any sort of advice will be based on the consultant agreement, which kind of, I don't know, kind of puts me off the whole idea. I'm not going to lie. So we don't have to take any action on this tonight. Given that new information, I'm uncertain. So that's all I'm going to say from a personal, like my board member perspective. But are there any questions about the policy?
Can I make a motion to postpone?
Yes, you may. That's
Okay,
totally
I move to postpone this matter till the February 12th meeting.
Okay. Would you want to see it come back for action? Because I'm not sure much will change between now and then. Is my only.
Right, but in the competing one, as we got legal advice from it, there was a lot of need to look into this, need to look into that.
Definitely there was, yes.
So we're not really ready to make a choice between the two.
Okay, would someone like to second Craig's proposal to postpone this action item until February 12th?
12th, that's our next meeting, I think.
Yes.
Can I ask a clarifying
Please.
question just about the fee structure with WASDA? In reading it, it sounded like that was because we were trying to do this based on the policy evaluation rather, or like they were prepared to advise us on a different route? Is that what it was?
So this
I
is
was confused
strange.
by that email.
Me too. And the original agreement, as I understood it, was that we would be piloting a model policy that they would then publish and implement for everyone else to use, right? And so I guess I assumed that meant that they would be collaborating with us. The fee structure was never mentioned. What I believe happened is I sent the document, like, so, rubber hit the road, and they were like, now there's work to be done. We have consultants for that, right? And so then, and I don't know the financial situation of WASDA either. They may be clamping down on like free work too. So I mean, there's that whole, but yeah, I definitely don't know that we're in a position to pay and also do the pilot. But again, just one board member's perspective, so. Okay, I don't hear a second. Is there anybody else? I'll give it another second. Is there anybody else has any motions to make? Okay. In that case, I am going to not bring this back unless requested by the board. If you guys send me a note and say we'd like to look at it again, we can talk. I'm thinking for now it's going to go away until I have a chance. I will reconnect with Cindy and WASDA and find out more about what their intentions are and how they want to roll. But I think for now this will put a stop on any activity on this policy. So, are there any questions before we move on to the next action item? Okay. Next, we will look at policy revision 1630, superintendent evaluation from Aaron Carter.
Yeah, so I made some updates based on the conversations we had, trying to clarify language in there. And then, as was mentioned, there was more just last night in an email sent to me, more comments on that from the legal counsel on just some clarity of that and kind of the intention of, why we have a policy and a procedure associated with that. So, I think there just needs to be, is that the process we want to look at, is having some sort of a process associated with that policy, or if we think, just what's stated in the policy is sufficient. I think, I looked at having some sort of a process associated with it, and that way we kind of know how to do the evaluations instead of just saying we will evaluate the superintendent twice a year. I did recommend, the one I did recommend in there is that we move to 3 times a year. Going back to, I think a question was brought up where I found that language. It was in a lot of others. I went back to the model policy from WASDA, and that is their language in there, is to do 3 times. That was kind of the basis for where some of that was coming from. But, without, I know there's another you know, another discussion item on here. So it seems like, you know, we've got some more discussion on there, so I would recommend the same on policy 1630. The policy revision, and make a motion to postpone this till the February 12th meeting so that we can continue the discussion item on this and bring back. And I'll be able to address some of the comments that were in that email from legal counsel.
Okay.
I just didn't have time in the
Oh, I know, I was
24
like,
hours from when I got that to when I did. So I moved to postpone the policy revision 1630 superintendent evaluation until the February 12th board meeting.
Second.
Okay, and then, all right, it's been moved and seconded that we postpone discussion on 1630 superintendent evaluation until our next meeting. Are there any questions on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Was that 3 votes? Okay, discussion is postponed for February 12th. Okay, and then next is just one discussion item, another model superintendent evaluation process, 1630. And just a point of order, we do 3 touch points per WASDA's recommendation for our evaluation. It is June, it is in our annual retreat, which we do goal setting, and then in January, when we do a checkup. So, that being said, I went ahead, just because of the conversation of last meeting, went ahead and put together sort of what our current procedure is. Just basically not changing anything, but just defining what we currently do. And so this, I thought, would be a good way to move forward without making any drastic changes, would be to just kind of look at what we're doing, codify it, and then make adjustments. And so, are there any questions on the procedures?
So for this process, how would this come and become policy 1630?
It would be
This as
procedure,
is?
1630P.
So this would be 1630P?
Yes. So
Okay.
the policy itself would not change.
Right.
This is just defining our activities based on what we currently do.
Yeah, it's
right?
fine. It just wasn't clear without anything on the document, and in the agenda, it's listed just as 1630.
Oh, yeah, it should have a P there, my
That's
bad.
fine. No, I just wanted to make sure that was clarified.
Can I ask
Yeah,
a question
please.
on this? Is this something, as far as your thought process, was this before or after some of the legal counsel information? That was just included sort of the question of whether having a procedure for this particular policy was wise, I guess, whether that was necessary. So would this,
This was drafted before legal counsel,
Okay.
but it was drafted with the intent of not putting anything in there other than procedural elements, right? So
Okay.
basically, these are the standards we use, these are the date ranges we use, these are the meetings we have. And so it's just stating facts,
Okay.
right? And so we tried to keep it to where it was basically just defining what we currently do with no, yeah, because I agree with some of that. And I think this was really meant off of your comments and Amanda's that we should have a procedure. And so I was like, I kind of agree. And so this was the first stab, right? But I definitely would take some feedback on the procedure. I mean, I think we should consider whether we want one or not. But if we do want one, I would recommend it be bare bones and it be only factual procedural elements. So no discursive elements or any other sort of contextual things or hypotheticals or anything else that doesn't really fit a procedure, which a procedure is like, open the door, turn the screw, close the door, you're done, right? So that's kind of what we're looking for in the procedural document, because that kind of eliminates any sort of interpretation or weird, people going random directions with it, right? That's a good question now. And so I will take an eye to this with that in mind, but again, it will basically just codify what we're currently doing, so. Are there any other questions?
How, so as this reads on May 15th, or on or before May 15th, we're provided kind of the final progress towards standards. And then on or before June 15th, we do a formal evaluation and with, scoring. So again, in that email that was sent, there was concern that we aren't meeting deadlines associated with tasks given to us?
These are current deadlines we've already committed to in the superintendent contract and in our process. And so that's what I mean, like I didn't add anything extra, but it's stuff that we've already committed to do based on his contract for the most part.
Yeah, I think
Right.
maybe, Aaron, part of it is it'd have to line up with the contract, and the contract has different dates, and like, May 15th isn't in the contract.
But the
Right.
fact that we
Yeah.
will deliver by May, the
Yeah.
report, and then June,
Yeah.
the verdict, and then January, the update.
So I think it would
right?
just be aligning whatever dates would be lined up in the contract.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
And again, this was written before legal counsel, so, you know, that may change. But like I said, I was basically just trying to codify what we currently do. And so currently, that's usually my goal, is to provide, well, his contract says we have to provide a letter by February 15th, and we have to provide a checkup in January sometime. The June thing is the other defined moment, but we gave ourselves a month to get it together and get the report and then get our verdict
Right.
and then put it
Yeah.
forward, right?
Yeah, but I think, I mean, this scores of unsatisfactory basic, I mean, that's gonna be new, because we don't currently provide.
No, and
that.
you had added that,
That was just a suggestion.
yeah.
Well, based on the feedback.
But
Yeah,
Based on
yeah,
the
yeah,
feedback.
I'm just clarifying
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
this isn't.
That would be fair.
This isn't what we currently do.
The grade
This is
is,
the proposed.
well, to be fair, we do
Some of it-
currently, at the end of the
some of
year,
it.
provide a score to Bob. And so this is not different, because we tell him you are meeting, exceeding, not meeting. I mean, it's a 1 through 4 scale, right? But we have been doing that in the past. Each year it is my pleasure to do so. So, no, it does not
Yeah.
change fundamentally anything that we currently do.
But it lines up with the rubric language.
And lines
Is
up
how
better
we-
with the
exactly.
rubric language, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only other thing, just, I mean, for consideration, I don't know how everyone else feels. I still really like the idea of having a, early fall discussion on the evaluation. I like the additional check-ins where we're all together and kind of discussing progress. And as I've been thinking about this one thing, to not try and burden down the process, but truly just to make it a informal discussion where I wouldn't expect, like we have in January, a lot of evidence towards progress, because we've only been at it for 3 or 4 months. But just again, an opportunity, like, again, before October 31st, just sit down and, without any evidence given to us, just be able to say, hey, if we're hearing anything that needs adjustments based on, what we said is the standards, if the superintendent has anything, as we start in, I mean, and it could be as simple as, right, we get together and it's, yep, everything's going well, and that's it, or it could be, but it gives opportunity to, I think, adjust before we get to the January 31st, decisions have to be made. We're at the end, and it gives no opportunity if something happens to be not going well. It doesn't give anybody an opportunity to adjust and, make a correction in sight. It's, you've kind of gone to the end. And so that was kind of just a thought I had that might, again, concede, like, not having anything for me, I don't want you to, the superintendent, to spend the time putting all these documents together, but gives us an opportunity still to add to that. So I don't know how, like, I know we need to draft this up, and if we come to some consensus in this process, in this discussion, to add that, to bring back, if we just bring this back, and, I mean, there's a lot of different procedural ways we could address that.
Well, just to clarify, the intention is to bring this back as an action item next time.
Right.
The other one is postponed until next time.
Right,
So
right.
we'll be potentially voting on both. It's either one or the other though, right? So like
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
not both.
But
A couple of notes on the fall question. And then Lisa, I'll get to your question as well. We chose not fall for a variety of reasons. One, there is absolutely no data available to look at, as you say, and so there's really nothing to judge on. And once the school year gets started, once everything is set in motion, it's very difficult to pivot, right? Like it's not a ship that turns quickly. And so the difference between October and January in changing things, please correct me if I'm wrong, but is very marginal. And the only other thing I would like to mention is that we meet twice a month, and you can bring these discussions up at any time during your board report, or have me put them on the agenda if you have concerns. And so, because we have our one-to-one every month where we meet and talk as individuals, and so if you have concerns, we can discuss when and where to bring them up during that meeting, or you can bring it up during the board meeting, right? And so it's not that we don't have the opportunity to check in, we just don't have it codified that we have to. And then the last thing I'd like to say about fall is it's when people are the busiest around here. And so it's not really a fantastic time to say, hey, staff, we need to shift and do this other thing. The January and June and July dates are very intentional because they coincide with breaks, right? So we got December, which gives people time to make the packet, right? We've got June, which gives people time to end the year and get some data in. And then in our July retreat is the goal to have all the data together and we can look at it and then set goals. But then I'm not sure what an additional meeting in October does. But that's just like, procedurally, I'm not sure what it gives us. But no, I'm happy to discuss both of these next time. I mean, I would say if you have revisions, get them to me, especially if you want legal counsel to look at them again. Make sure to give them to me with a few days leeway there. And then Lisa, what was your question?
Yeah, I appreciate that context and Aaron's comments. I think I might be misunderstanding Aaron, but I think I hear what you're saying where like sometimes when we set the goals in the summer, and I've only been through this cycle once, that's based on different, like the goals we have at that time are kind of aspirational and also like we're sort of trying to predict things. I would argue that we do have a lot more information once school starts because a lot of those decisions have been made. I don't know that it's an evaluation point, but maybe there would be some sort of even like goals check-in we could do, and like you were saying, we could just bring that up informally, but I do feel like there's a lot of adjustments during those first, like in between that time period of when we are doing our retreat and when we have our first meetings of the school year, that maybe it's more of a district check-in. I did feel sometimes, not like surprised this year, but sometimes just not knowing basic facts, like how many people did we end up hiring in various positions, or there's a lot of things where it'd be nice to just have kind of a check-in of knowing the levels of busyness that people are at during that transition time. And I think that could go to some things we've talked about too, like making sure that our district leaders are getting credit for the work they are doing that is sometimes kind of invisible, like a lot of that hiring or making adjustments. We know that there were a lot of adjustments made this year for like enrollment and classes and a lot of work that teachers put into that as well. So I don't know if there's a way that we could maybe just, I think I hear that time of year would be nice for a check-in. I don't think it fits into this process necessarily, but it would be nice maybe to have something at that time of year, acknowledging that people are busy and don't have time to prepare something new, but just to make sure that we're caught up on whether any goals need to shift as a result of changes that have happened.
Well, it's something that you brought up last meeting was that we don't have a great way to evaluate our strategic objectives. And so that is something that I have been considering, is putting in a quarterly strategic objective update, right? Which is like, hey, this is what we're doing, this is how it's going. I mean, I'm confused as to why we're putting it in the superintendent evaluation process, right? Because I'm like, why are we asking him in October? Because what I see happening is the way our model works is he gets goals in July, he has until January to make progress on them, and then we get to pivot, and then he makes progress on them until June. But what I'm hearing is that we give him goals in July, and then we may change them in October. And so there is no certainty in any sort of activities that he would do if he's like 3 months in, they're going to pull the rug out from under me and change all the goals, right? And so I agree that it would be nice to hear a routine update on the strategic objectives and maybe even the plan, Again, don't know why it's in the superintendent evaluation. That's sort of my confusion, so go ahead, Aaron.
So just to clarify that, the intention of that October meeting would not be to change the goals or the standards. It would be to, let's say one of them is curriculum, instruction, and assessment or whatever, right? And that's the standard, and, we put it there, and then, we find out that, we're hearing, oh, there needs to be more effort in college in the classroom, right? And so.
How would we hear that, though? Like, you're saying like some constituent told
Or
us?
either constituents or,
Okay.
Teachers or, whatever it is, just, as you start out, or, one of them is,
But why is that in the superintendent evaluation?
because it would help us give the superintendent feedback to meet the goal based on, what we're hearing from constituents. So if it's meaningful engagement of families and community, and in all the month of September, we happen to hear something negative, like, oh, communications aren't happening, board, weekly updates aren't getting sent out, whatever the weirdness might be, it gives us the opportunity to step in and say, hey, we're hearing that on this meaningful engagement, we need to have a little more communication on that to the families. And then that could allow the superintendent to pivot on, this was my intention, but I realize, to meet proficiency based on what the board's understanding of that is, maybe we need to have more communication. And to your point about we could address these, individually, while we can, there would still need to be a good feedback mechanism to make sure the rest of the
It is.
the
You want me
board.
to tell you what it is? So in his contract, it says that when you hear these things from your constituents, that we don't have enough community communication, that you're required to tell him. And so then he goes and looks into it, comes up with a plan, brings it to us during the next board meeting to say, hey, thanks, Aaron, for bringing up that thing in our one-to-one, or whenever and however you did it. I'm going to inform the board now on what I intend to do about it. And now that's not something that needs to happen once a year. That's something that needs to happen continuously throughout the process, right? Like, we should be doing that. And a perfect example is Craig went to the one-to-one today and shared some great information with us about some constituents who had some concerns. And we were able to develop a plan to alleviate those concerns. And so we didn't have to wait till October, and we didn't have to use it as part of the evaluation process. It's stipulated in his contract that you will tell him those things not in October, but immediately. And then he, or whoever the superintendent is at the time, can then take action immediately, right? And so that's where I'm confused again. Like, why, unless it's a tool to evaluate Bob, it shouldn't be in the evaluation. So if we're using it as a tool to pivot, we're either changing objectives midstream, or we're waiting 3 months to communicate something that should have been by contract communicated immediately, right? And so I'm just not,
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm not sure why it's in the superintendent evaluation, right? Like,
Okay,
that's,
yeah, I guess I haven't seen that process all the time. And so having that established a little more was gonna be useful for me.
okay, no, that's, I mean, we've had the
I mean, that's-
one-to-one since July. And I think they work pretty well. I mean, like, as far as people being able to voice concerns and stuff. And it's also just generally, I've been very open with putting agenda items on the list. I mean, usually you would be required to make motions and stuff to put, but, in a collegial way, I'm happy to put things that you want to discuss on the agenda. And so I'm just not, I don't believe in making policies or procedures unless there's a purpose, right? Like, what gap are we closing, with this? Or otherwise, it seems like it's just confusing and or could hamper the process, right? And so I just want to make sure that whatever we do and whatever we put in there is helpful for the superintendent in his evaluation, not the goals or the objectives of the district, because that's a totally different policy, right? That's that document which we approve. And then we can totally do a quarterly meeting or something, or whatever y'all want to do, but it's not the evaluation, right? And so that's where I'm I just don't know. But no, are there any other questions, comments? I know this has been a difficult one. Please, Amanda.
Before you said it, I was actually also gonna say, I feel like it's our duty as board members to, if an issue arises, be sure that it's getting solved as quickly as possible if it's something that can be solved quickly, which means communicating that issue. And often it is something that needs to be solved, but more often than not, it's something that just needs to be communicated because it's a misconception or a lack of information, in which case a board report is developed or it's discussed at the next meeting. But addressing those issues as they arise, I think, is more important than saving it until a date to then bring up.
Are there any other questions, comments? Okay. The two under discussion, I'm going to actually ask that we get all changes that you guys would like by Monday of next week. And so that will give me Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to run them by any sort of review or anything, just because I want to make sure we're all like, we're good, right? So try to get me any changes to, Aaron, your policy based on legal counsel. And then I will make changes on the 1630 procedure based on the same advice that we received. And so if anybody else has any changes to those two items, please give them to me by Monday. And then that way we can get them vetted, we can get them in the agenda, and then we can get them under action. So thank you all very much for the discussion. That was very good. Next, we'll move to informational items. They do not require action or discussion by the board. The items are included in the agenda for the board to review and may be moved to the discussion items section of the board agenda by any board member. Informational items may include board procedure updates and non-substantive policy updates. Are there any informational items that anyone would like to remove this evening? Okay. Next, we will move into an executive or closed session. How long do you think we'll need this evening?
I'd say 5 minutes for personnel and then whatever you think for the superintendent.
Okay. I haven't heard much feedback on the eval, but we'll give it 15 and 5. So, yeah, let's give us,
Till 8:15.
yeah, 8:15 is perfect. Give us 3 minutes.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.